We're going to start just with a quick, there's just a couple of us, so I'm not too worried about if you have any questions, feel free to come off of mute and just go ahead and ask them, as well as put them in the chat, whatever works for you. So the first thing, I just kind of wanted to get some background on who you are, what grade level you're coming from. Are you a classroom teacher, a coach? Are you elementary, secondary? And then just in general, your experience with Lucid. So a lot of us are in a webinar. I see we have a couple people in a room together. So I will also turn on the join code. But let me grab the share link. I'm just going to grab it from this frame. I'm putting that into the chat. If you click on that link, it will bring you into the same view that you see on my board. And you're just going to click and drag out a sticky note from the toolbar on the left-hand side and just answer the question above. That way I can make sure that I'm speaking to the roles in the room. And then for those of you who don't have access to the link in the chat, let me quickly turn on join code and turn that on. And if you go to lucid.app forward or back, I never know if this is forward or backward, /join. And then this is your join code right here. So go ahead and take a second to go ahead and get logged in. And then Karen, if it prompts them to log in, can you remind me, are they logging in with a Google account, Microsoft, just their email?
For us in Wagga Wagga, it's just single sign-on with Google. Okay. And I think it might be the same for the other dioceses.
Yes, I think it's all standard across. So just use that login with Google button and use those Google credentials, and that will get you all logged in. Okay, so we've got multiple year threes, no experience. For those of us here in America who don't know what year three is, what age level? I'm assuming littles, but what age are they?
Year threes, 8 and 9 year olds.
Sorry, what was it?
Yeah, 8 and 9 year olds.
8 and 9 year olds. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have lots of year threes. Awesome. And just some background on me. I actually taught mostly in elementary school before I became an ed tech and then came to Lucid. So I've taught here in the States, first grade, second grade, and third grade and fourth grade. So all the way from 6 years old up to whatever grade is fourth grade. Whatever age is fourth grade. So hopefully I can answer a lot of your questions today since I have a nice elementary group. And I'm seeing no experience. So I am going to start with a little bit of just kind of an intro of the dashboard before I jump into our specifics about STEM and science and different things like that, just so you have some experience and understanding of what is Lucid for Education. So if you're still in there just getting started, continue to write that in and I'll check back on this. Now we have stage 2 teacher and no experience. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Here you'll see that this is the Lucid for Education dashboard. The Lucid for Education gives you access to the 2 main tools that we're going to be talking about today are Lucid Chart and Lucid Spark. The presentation and what you were just collaborating in was Lucid Spark. And then I'll also give you a preview of Lucid Chart. Just since we have a lot of people with no experience, Lucid Spark is mainly for whole group facilitating whole group collaboration, brainstorming, polling a class, a space where everyone is collaborating and learning together. And then Lucid Chart is where we take those brainstorms and then we develop them into deeper level concept maps, flow charts, sequence maps, any type of graphic organizer that you could think of. We have customizable templates that you can get started with. So that's a brief overview, but by the end of today, you'll kind of get an idea of how you can use it in your science class. When you log in, it looks very similar to obviously you're logging in with Google, so you're familiar with your Google dashboard for your Google Drive. And so same thing, you have your recent, your starred items and recommended for the education domain up at the top here. Then coming down the left-hand side, you go into documents to find all the folders you've created and any documents you've created. Please don't follow in my lead. Once you make something, click and drag it into a folder or create it from within a folder so you stay nice and organized and you don't have just thousands of unorganized things. So stay organized. If you take anything from today, we're going to stay organized. And then below, you'll have your shared with me and your team folders. Anything in a team folder, the team owns. So that's great for collaborating with your team teachers. If one person leaves, they don't take any of those documents with them when they go. It stays with the team. And then the one we all love the most, we have our templates. So when you go into the templates, this is where you can search all templates, Lucid Chart or Lucid Spark specific templates. And you'll see in each of these, there are education specific areas. It's not all of the templates, but it's giving you a sneak peek of our most popular or our newest. And you can also search by topic. So you could say cause and effect, space, solar system diagram, all of those different things. But I'm going to give you a specific toolkit of STEM related templates that you can use today. So I'm going to go ahead and give you about 2 minutes to find the Lucid dashboard and get started. So what you're going to do is I'm going to just open up an incognito window. So if you type in lucid.app, then that should bring you to that website. And I'm going to go ahead and add that into the chat as well. And with you, Karen, and with you. I should have put some more Star Wars stuff in my presentation. I didn't even think about it. So there's the main app. And then if you could just kind of give me, I got in, I'm successful or something in the chat or a thumbs up in the video, that will tell me that you have successfully been able to log in to the Lucid for Education dashboard. Okay, I got a thumbs up from John. Thank you. Perfect. Kathleen says they're in. Okay, perfect. So anytime you're going to Lucid, thank you, Nick, you're just going to lucid.app. So that's what you're going to want to bookmark if you haven't already. This is that home base. And anytime, if you're not already logged in, I'm going to just do that incognito window again. If you go to lucid.app without being logged in, you can just click on this login with Google. So this is what you and your students can use. Just click login with Google, and then you use those Google credentials to get right into the program. Okay, so now that we've successfully logged in, that's always the scariest part. We're going to go ahead and take a pause. And I'm going to go ahead and show you some examples and get you started with some stuff inside of Lucid today. And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end for everybody to create and share with the group something they quickly create at the end today. Okay, so I'm just going to hop in here. I'm going to pull this Lucid board off to the side as well. So feel free to write any questions. I have the chat and that board up. So feel free to put any questions on the board. Or just put the questions inside the chat as well. Okay, let me just move everybody around so I can see everyone. Okay, So today we're talking about specifically how to use Lucid to support STEM in your classroom. And since I'm seeing that most of us are in an elementary setting, I'm going to focus mostly on an elementary use case. So our first example we're going to go over is, this is a teacher from one of our local schools here in West Virginia. And this is Zach, and he's going to start by sharing how he uses it specifically in his classroom. I always like to share with a real live teacher sharing how they use it in the classroom.
I'm Zach Willsway. I'm a science teacher at Shoreline Middle School in Wetzel County, West Virginia, and I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science. So how I used it last year, I tried to take concepts that kind of follow flows or cycles. I essentially just provided the kids with vocab words, and they had to do online research to see what the vocabulary words meant and when they kind of fit into the cycle. And then they would ask me questions to kind of guide them through if they got confused. I started them off individually, and then saw how that went. And as they kind of started to struggle a little bit, and when they kind of started to get frustrated, then I combined them into groups to work together, and that alleviated some stress, and they got a little bit further. And I was just kind of there to guide them through the process and make sure that nobody was having fundamental misconceptions and big mistakes. But for the most part, they guided themselves through the activity I planned out for them. I provided them a NASA website that they had to search through to get facts about each of the planets. I combined them in pairs at first, just to kind of collaborate on how to design it. And there were a lot of different designs. People use more arrows, less arrows, more of like a flow versus some people use it more of like a poster board. So that was kind of neat seeing the variations. We essentially just used that NASA website to pull facts, and then just as a class got up and presented everyone's planet and facts about it, pictures. Again, it kind of took like a pretty typical in-class activity of doing that. You know, you just pull facts about the planets and go through them in some manner, but it just kind of streamlined it really nicely, in my opinion. And the kids really enjoyed using Lucid to do it as well, because like I said, it's so easy that they can spend more time being creative and less time worrying about how they're going to do it. I personally found Lucid to be extremely simple and just very streamlined. I mean, you drag a box, you add text, you add an arrow. You can add pictures right there. You know, I could have students working together on opposite sides of the room where they can't talk to each other, but they have to, you know, type to communicate with one another. Because as they get older, they might not be working with someone that they can just talk to. And the fact that everything, it's like an endless board as well. So, you know, if we really wanted to, we could have the entire classes water cycles all on the same board to move around to each person's as a class afterwards and discuss, you know, the positives and negatives to each one. I mean, there's just like endless things you can do with it. I just think it's like a super simple, easy way to get kids to work together that they enjoy doing. You can have the entire class working on one. You can have individual, like it's anything you want to make it. That's why I like it. I'm definitely going to incorporate it a whole lot more this year, that's for sure.
Okay, so there are two things I always love to highlight about Zach's video. So one, I love how all of his examples, the students are starting from empty blank canvases and creating something to share their learning. So they're kind of given a task, they're given a rubric, and then they create something. So everybody, either small group or independent, they're creating something authentic to them. So each group's project isn't going to look the same. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I always found that students were more engaged, they were more excited about their learning, and they were more invested when they were creating something that was, you know, something they were creating from scratch just for them. That, you know, search for that intrinsic learner that's so elusive. The closest I ever got to intrinsic learners was when they were creating in my classroom. And then the second thing, I like how, I forget what he said. If I'm just going to go back, it was that last line. Oh, it's anything you want to make it. So I'm going to show you a lot of templates, a lot of ideas today. But the pure thing that I love about Lucid is the fact that it can just be a creativity tool at its base. So you can make it whatever you want to be in your classroom. So those are my two main call outs from Zach's video. Okay, so now we're going to go through examples, and hopefully we'll get some light bulbs going off. I'm going to show you some examples of how you can get started using it, and then hopefully we'll get to create and share some type of resource or idea that you could use with your children. So the first one is example. This is coming from a classroom where they were studying food webs. And so in the past, the teacher had done this paper pencil, and they said it was frustrating because the students kept having to erase everything and start over, because when you're building a complex diagram like this, you're not going to get it right the first time. And so their erasers were down to the nub. They were just throwing away their papers, where when it was digital, the students were able to easily just move things around, make changes without meeting that frustration piece. And so you'll see here, I'm going to send out this presentation at the end as well, and all of the different templates will be linked in the bottom right hand corner. So this will give you an example of this template that you could get started with. So there are two main ways you could do this. I taught elementary, like you have heard, so I always liked to scaffold and model a ton with my students. So depending on what grade level you are, you could start by pre-adding some of these images for the students and then asking them to create the web. You could even come in and actually create an empty web. So I'm just going to pretend I'm the teacher making an empty space for the web. So I'm pre-creating this web that I want the students then to click and drag each of these icons down. Oh, I forgot I locked these. So if you're doing a drag and drop activity, don't lock the images you want them to drag. So you'll see here, then they can drag and say, okay, so I know that the rabbit is going to, and I'm going to arrange these to the front, arrange, bring to front. So I know that the grass is going to go first, and then I know the rabbit eats the grass. So they could click and drag it into a pre-populated food web that you've created, or they could just pull them down and then they could create the food web themselves. Is it possible for students to make a copy? They can, yes. So what you can do is, okay, I love all these questions. You're jumping right into it. I love it. So one, can you record audio so they can explain it without text? In the upper right-hand corner, we have a Loom integration, which you should be able to just continuously make under 5-minute videos without needing a Loom subscription or anything like that. So you just click the Loom integration button, and then it will pull up a screen recording option. And just like anything, you can use screen and camera, screen only, or camera only. So I do this a ton with students where I record myself with my screen and camera where I'm actually modeling it. So I'm not going to actually turn it on because I don't know if it'll mess up my our Zoom meeting, but you can just hit record and then it'll automatically embed as a video that the students can watch right here on the activity. So 100% with my first graders, I would record myself modeling every single activity that I wanted them to complete, and then you can push it out to your students. Remind me, Karen, do you guys use Canvas, Schoology, or Google Classroom?
Most of our, well, it depends on the diocese, but I know in Wagga we use Classroom and we have one school that uses Schoology.
Perfect. So inside of, we have the Schoology integration. So if you're not seeing it integrated as an add materials add-on, just talk to whoever, in your district, like your ed tech coach or somebody like that, and they should be able, they can get in touch with me to make sure we get that set up. And then in Google Classroom, it's automatically there in the upper right-hand corner of Lucid Chart. We do have a Lucid Spark integration coming, but it's not out yet. So I'm doing all of these inside of Lucid Spark, but a lot of these templates are actually in Lucid Chart. So in Lucid Chart, in the upper upper right-hand corner, you just click, there'll be a little Google Classroom button. You click on it, you push it out, it makes a copy for each of your students, so then you can manage those assignments that way. And then the second question was, is it possible for, oh, I kind of answered that. So yes, the students you can push it out through Google Classroom, or you can also use the 3 lines and duplicate. I use that for a lot of my templates. Like I'll do the same vocabulary template every single week, and I just plug in different words to that template. So I will often just duplicate my template and then add the new words each time. So you could do that, or students could do that, or you could use the Google Classroom integration. So this was the click and drag option. And one thing I like to show inside of Lucid, what I really like is how you can easily connect these different things. So I can, if I pull out my mouse and I click on my shape, you'll see this little arrow, and you can click and drag to connect the lines. So it just really makes it easy to drag and drop those connections. And you can double click on a line and you can write directly inside of that line as well. So you could add that connection. So, you know, the mouse eats the grass. So I could flip it around and I could have the mouse eating the grass or something like that. You get the gist. So that's how you could pre-populate, where they're kind of dragging out the pre-populated images, they're moving them around, and then they're using those lines and arrows to connect them. And then I'll show you what this looks like in a second inside of Lucid Chart. You could also have them start from scratch. So you can kind of see the scaffold here. You could have just the animal pictures. You could have a pre-created web that they're dragging the pictures into the correct areas on the web. Or you just say, I want you to start from a blank canvas and I want you to create a food web. And a lot of times, this is what I love for group work. I would assign different habitats to each group. So you do the grasslands, you do the Arctic, you do the rainforest, and then each group is creating their own food webs for each of those and then sharing their final product with the rest of the group. And inside of Lucid Spark, I kind of already showed you on the left-hand side from our toolbar, you have your shapes. You already experienced sticky notes. And then the mountain and the moon is where you could go to search. So I'm going to go ahead and search a cat, because I always search a cat. And then from here, you can just find a cat, or you can find icons of cats. A lot of times I'll also say cat cartoon, and it'll give, you know, cartoons or cat icon, and you can get cat icons. So this is Bing's safe search. We found that Bing was the safest of the different search engines. So it's just an embedded Bing search. And then once they find one, they click and drag it onto the screen, and they use the sizes to resize. And then again, they can use the arrows to connect them to the next area. Okay, so that was starting from scratch. When we go back to the main food web and I click on the link to the template, the template is actually inside of Lucid Chart. And inside, I forgot I'm not in my teacher account, so it's going to yell at me. But you'll notice here inside, I'm just going to copy this link so I can show you in my teacher account. There's one thing for the food web, and I actually already had it out because I was playing with it. In Chart, this is where you would find right here, you see that Google Classroom button. So I can make any changes that I want to my template. Then you click on the Google Classroom button in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll push it out to your Google Classroom. When your students are creating these, Lucid Chart, you'll see, is a little bit different. Instead of that little circle icon to connect the arrows, you'll grab these red dots, and then you can pull out the red dots to connect any of these different sections. So that's one thing I just like to point out in Lucid Chart. You use the red dots to make your connections. And you'll also notice that it has tabs. So it has an example tab, and then a create. So this is where you could generate your own template for students, where, you know, this is the empty one, and then you could fill your images in, and they could just be dragging them into the sections. Okay, So that was a long-winded food web examples. Any questions related to creating food webs? Okay, perfect. The next example, life cycles. So I use life cycles in first grade all the time. We did butterfly life cycles, frog life cycles, and just kind of showing them those different cycles. So same idea as the food web, except using it for life cycles, so doing it in a circular pattern. Here you can see to start from scratch, you can just come in here and you can search for, so this time we'll do a tadpole, and the students can search for the tadpole and they can drag it out onto the screen. Even though the tadpole is not first, everyone stop judging me. This should have been the egg, but we're gonna pretend we start our cycle with a tadpole, and then you could pull them out into the screen. But one thing I wanted to highlight with Lucid Spark is there's that annotation tool. I use the annotation tool a lot for teaching phonics, along with the Loom integration. This is kind of, since you're my elementary people, you'll get my geekiness, but I loved creating, this is not STEM related, but I would create videos of myself kind of modeling the word is cat, at, and then I would use the annotation tool to write cat. So the students would watch the video and then right next to the video, they would write the word cat. So they kind of it kind of brought a more specific instruction to my small group instruction for the students who were not with me at that time. They still kind of got to be with me through the videos plus practice. But anyway, in my annotation tool, you'll see I have a bunch of different colors you can pick. So they could even create. So I'm actually going to draw, here is my leaf. And then on my leaf, I'm going to draw my little eggs. So they start, although now I'm drawing a caterpillar. It is late, guys. I'm sorry. So now we're shifting to the beginning of a caterpillar life cycle where they could draw it out. And then they could use the text boxes to write, egg. I often just like using the sticky notes. I find them just so easy to use. So they could pull out the sticky note and they could write egg as well. And then they can draw their arrows using the annotation tool as well. So we're going to pretend that this is going to turn into a tadpole. So then this way you can see they can draw out those life cycles as well. Okay, the next example is a solar system example. This is kind of coming to a lot of drag and drop. So could you get the students to pick the errors? I don't know, what does that mean?
Sorry, Vanessa, I was just thinking about your previous thing. You could actually put the life cycle together and get them to pick out what the errors are in the life cycle, and then they could fix it themselves.
Ooh, I love that. Perfect. So then they
Yeah.
could come out and be like, this isn't even a frog life cycle.
Yeah.
So they could drag sticky notes out, they could fix it then, so they could say, really they lay their eggs in water. And then they could even draw it. So they could draw it, they could add a picture, so they could, yes, exactly. I love that idea. And then they could come out and they could say, no, you did this all wrong. So they could kind of go through, they could change it, tweak it, they can do anything they want. And something to also, this is in Chart and Spark, a lot of the same things, it flows very naturally between Spark and Chart. A lot of the same features are in both. If I right click on any of these as well, you can add comments. So a lot of times as the teacher, I'll add comments, and you can assign those as tasks. So I could say like and I'm just going to write this to myself. So it's not going to a random person, but you start typing the student's email. And so you can say at this person, this is from the wrong animal. Please, blah, 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 fix this, ... And then you can even assign it as a task, which I love. And then it'll email them if your students have access to their Google email addresses. I'm not sure if they do. They will get an email, or they can come up to the comments button in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll list all of the comments and all of the tasks, and then you can actually check them off as they go. So great for that feedback loop where you go in, provide feedback for the student, and then the student can go in and actually check those off as they make those corrections. Also great for group work. The students can say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then they can assign tasks. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, and then they can go back through and use that to monitor which student is doing what and when they're done as well. Okay, perfect. So then this space solar system is just kind of showing we have a couple already created drag and drop activities in a toolkit that I'm going to show you. So in this one, a lot of the templates will also have kind of different levels. This one doesn't have it, but it'll have like, you know, a DOK level 1 all the way to a DOK level 3. Usually level 1 is drag and drop. And level 3 is start from a blank canvas. Here are your vocabulary words. Now I want you to create. Because I just love how deeply they need to think about what they're learning in order to create something. So for this example, the students can actually just drag down and they can drag the sun into the center. Then they label the sun and they can actually just do that drag and drop activity. Earth. Right here, we're going to pretend I know about each of these. So you can see just really quick, easy to use drag and drop activities. We've created some for you, but you can also just open up a blank Lucid chart board. And then over here in Lucid chart, you'll see that you can import files from your computer, or again, here's that Bing Safe Search with the magnifying glass. So you can search any of those different images, and you can use any of these different shapes to create your own type of drag and drops. Since you guys are elementary, I assume you guys don't only do STEM. I use this a ton for sorting. So I would pull out, you know, like this is going to be my short A box. I'm just going to erase this and then pull out short A. And you could also do like mammals, amphibians. So we're going to like stay true to what we're supposed to be talking about today. But here we have short A, and then I'm just going to copy both of these, just your standard copy and paste. And then I'm going to make this long A. And then you can pull out, again, I love my stickies. I just pull out a bunch of stickies and I move them onto the side. I'm just making this really quick. Cat, cake. And then once you have it pre-made for the students, you can push it out through Google Classroom, and then they can actually complete the sort and turn it back into you. So they could drag it to short A, long A, or mammals, amphibians, all the different mammal classifications, and they could do that sort as well. One thing I love to highlight about Lucid Chart is the lock. I used to do this a lot in Google, and I'd send it out through Google Classroom, and my students would erase everything, move it, delete everything, not on purpose, but accidentally. So inside of Lucid, once you're done with your template, like I'd have all of these over here. I'm not going to lock these because I want the students to be able to move them, but I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to use the lock in the toolbar. And so I'm going to lock, and Lucid Chart actually has 3 different permissions. So you can lock by size, position, style, and content. So for this one, I'm just going to lock all 3. So now when the students are moving, they're not going to accidentally move the areas for the sorting area. So you can, like I said, create any type of sort or activity that you would like, and then just push that out through Google Classroom. Okay, the next one is, this is actually just an example that a student created. This is going back to the teacher. They were studying volcanoes. This was that end of the unit assessment. So instead of doing a typical like multiple choice assessment, the teacher divided the students into groups. They gave them the rubric of the things they needed to show. And then for this one, what I loved, it allowed for some voice and choice. You had some students who created this diagram of a volcano. You'll see here, I have it locked. Let me just quickly unlock it. What the students did was they just used it's just an image. I didn't pull in that. Is it? There we go. I thought I pulled it in. So these are all just shapes that they used from the shape toolbar. They click and drag them out. They made them into colors, and and they actually created this diagram of a volcano. Some students did a actual like concept map. So they started with volcano and then they built out a concept map. Other students completed a compare and contrast, and they actually compared volcano with another natural disaster. So you had different ways for the students to share what they learned based on the rubric that they were given. And I just love how, again, how deeply students need to think in order to create something authentic from scratch. And then when you add that collaboration with a team, that just boosts it up even more. Okay, now this one, I like this. We're moving towards the end of the school year here. And so this is one I pushed out here for kind of fun ways to review what you had studied. So here in Utah, we study the different rock formations in 4th grade. So you have like a single standing arch, balanced rock. So what this teacher did was they actually had the students create kind of a work of art using Lucid to represent each of those rock formations. So this is just one of those examples where the students created a balanced rock. And so you can see here, they just made it, these are all just individual little stars that they brought out. And then they use the shapes to, put together the balanced rock and the text box. So in here, you can actually click on this link and you can kind of pull that apart once. And I will send you the path link to this presentation. It's a view only. So if you want to play with anything, tear it apart, just do file up here, duplicate, and then you'll get your own copy. So you can play with it, change it, and then you'll have all of these. So apologies, I meant to put this into chat earlier. So there's the presentation. Feel free to follow along or just have it for afterwards. So this is a really fun twist on having the students take everything that they learned about something and then create a piece of art showing what they had learned. The next one, I actually got this idea from an elementary special ed teacher that I taught. They were going to be learning about the layers of the rainforest. So she was like, "Oh my goodness, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have them go into Lucid and I'm going to have them build the layers of the rainforest." So again, here, these are just, I use the shapes to create the trees, and then I use the image search to pull out each of the animals and to put them in the correct zone. And again, you could build, a base layer template, and then you could pull, like, I'm going to pull all of the animals. Oh, I just did the image. Let me click on the example so I can give you the edited version. So feel free when you get into this one, I believe it should make a copy, or you can just do file, duplicate, and feel free to reuse this however you'd like. So here's that file, duplicate. And so you could even pull out the words onto the side. Obviously, we don't want this to be white if we're doing that. So I'm just going to change the color to be blue. So you could pull out all the stories, you could pull out all the images, and then you could do a drag and drop. Or again, the students could do this from scratch. So just some ideas of 2 different levels where you could drag and drop, or students could start from a blank canvas, depending on, the age and ability of your students. Okay, the next one. Okay, so those were kind of a couple examples of using Lucid to create something that you're learning about in science. Any specific questions related to just creation? Okay, perfect. And I actually did a whole presentation on this at our local conference, and I had a teacher come up to me and he said he just loves having students just go to the blank canvas. And he said, when you get into the workforce and when you get into like even high school, college, they don't always tell you exactly how to do something. And a lot of times students don't often have those like productive struggle opportunities in school where they just have to figure it out. And so he loves these type of projects to really enhance, like, not only reviewing what we're learning, introducing those critical thinking skills, and having students kind of struggle a little bit. And then they're so much prouder of what they've created when they had to encounter some of those different problem solving skills. Okay, so enough about that. Clearly, I'm very passionate about creativity in the classroom, and I absolutely love when students create. So this is just an example of using concept maps inside of Lucid. I usually use Lucid. I created this one inside of Lucid Spark. You can create them in Lucid Spark, or you can create them in Lucid Chart. You'll know that it's Lucid Chart when you have the orange arrows, and you'll know it's Lucid Spark when you have the red star. So I use Lucid Spark a lot for my presentations because you have like that easier flow. But a lot of times when I'm pushing out templates to students, I'm having them inside of Lucid Chart. So for this one, just kind of showing how you could also, Lucid Chart was originally created for concept maps, mind maps, flow charts, process maps. So that was kind of the bread and butter of why it was created. So in science, it's a really great way to have students. You could do this together. In lower grades, I would just pull up a blank document and say, okay, everyone, pull up a blank Lucid Chart document, and now let's build this together. So I would project on the screen, I would be writing it down, they would be modeling after me. And then on the next level, you could also send out a template where you maybe have animal classifications and you have mammals, amphibians, and then example and characteristics empty for each of them. And then they're using the image search to pull out their own examples, or they're using the bubbles, the text boxes to fill out the characteristics. So again, it's all about, you know, that scaffolding process where your students are at. You can also just do different things. You could have, you know, some students creating it from scratch. You could have some students back in a small group with you, creating it together for those students who need a little bit more support. So you can also kind of flex and grow with that as well. And I kind of already modeled it before, but you just kind of click and drag out, and then they can quickly use this shortcut menu to create a quick template for them. And then again, if I were making this a template, I would do it inside a Lucid Chart. So I'm just going to copy and paste. You'll notice you can copy and paste in between Lucid Spark and Lucid Chart really easily. So I'm just going to open up a new Lucid Chart document. So if I wanted to send a template for a concept map out to my students, I would open up a blank Lucid Spark document, and then I would start building out that concept map where, like I said, I would probably build out the characteristics. One thing I do like to do is up here at the top before you get started, you can choose some different line permissions. I'm not a fan of the elbow lines, so I'm going to change it to be the straight line, and now it will always be a straight line. So you can pre-do your colors and all of those things ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag out. So then I'll have my characteristics, and then I'm going to drag out my examples. And so do that for each of them, and then I could push that out through the Google Classroom integration, and then the students can then click and drag out and start filling that out. Or you can even add on the, you know, on the side, you could add a word bank, and they could be clicking and dragging the word banks out and the bubbles. So you can kind of get the idea of the different ways that you could scaffold this for your students. Okay, so the next one, I'm going to show this as an activity. This one is a little bit more advanced, so I wouldn't jump right into this. I always start with things that are simple, but I just kind of wanted to show this idea of using Lucid Spark to scaffold different type of like jigsaw activities. So you can have one Lucid Spark board, and we have breakout boards. And so the video will show more about it, but you could create, let's say we're talking about the different types of animal classifications. So I could make a couple different boards, and I'm just going to rename them. So this is going to be the amphibian board. This is going to be the mammal board, the fish board, and then I'm going to assign groups to each of them. So I'm going to say, you know, you're in the fish group. I want you and your teammates to go into your correct breakout board, and I want you to create whatever you want them to create. So concept map, you could embed an article or a PDF inside of that for them to read and respond. You can just click and drag a PDF from your desktop into that board, and it'll automatically embed there. So they could read the article, they could annotate on top of it, and then they could create something to share what they learned. And then what I love about it as the teacher, I can click on the breakout boards and I can join and I can pop into the amphibian group. I can pop into the fish group, and you can kind of see in real time what each of your groups are working. So it's multiple groups still tied to the same workspace. So I'm going to share the video, and hopefully that should kind of go over that in a little bit more detail. And that's me.
Education's Classroom Connections.
I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit.
About this learning and encourage ownership of learning. Jigsaw activities can be hard to organize, and students sometimes find themselves lost and confused. Lucid Spark makes it easy to clearly lay out the expectations for the activity and give students a clear structure to guide their work. This reduces confusion for students, allowing them to focus all of their attention on the content they are learning. Now let's take a look at what this looks like. For this lesson, the teacher is separating students into groups to complete a jigsaw activity about symbiotic relationships in nature. The teacher starts by sending out an edit shareable link to all the students. Students enter the main board where they can quickly identify who they will be working with and how to access their group workspace in breakout boards. They can access these breakout boards from the toolbar. If you or your students don't see breakout boards in the toolbar, click on the 3 dots at the bottom of the toolbar to access and pin additional tools. As students join their breakout board, the teacher can quickly see who is in which board by looking for their icons on the breakout board side panel. Now that students are in their breakout board, they have direct access to the article and step-by-step instructions walking them through the expectations and requirements for the activity. As students are working, now the teacher can easily pop in to monitor and provide feedback while the students are working. Last but not least, the teacher can call all of the students out of their breakout boards and back into the main board to start sharing their section. To share, everyone can travel into each breakout board with their sharing groups, or if you're sharing whole group, the teacher can quickly drag the content onto the main board for everyone to see. To make this process even easier for you and your students, we've put together this template that you can use to quickly put together your own jigsaw activities. Simply search templates using the keyword jigsaw and get started. Pro tip, you can link the group tiles on the landing page by using the direct links to each breakout board. This shortcut link takes students directly into their breakout board from their tile. We would love to hear.
Okay, so hopefully that just kind of got some ideas with breakout boards. We have that video, you can refer back to it again as you're going into it. So I wouldn't jump right into breakout boards the first time you're getting students into Lucid, but I think it's a really great way to facilitate and monitor small group work. In that one, you could see the teacher was assigning them different types of symbiotic relationships, and then they were going to share with the group what they learned. But you could also do that with the exact same assignment. So like the same template, I want everybody. So you could go into the first one. So I'm just going to join this first one. You can add a template that you want the students to work on. And then, so I'm just going to pretend I'm going to search. They changed the icon and where the templates are. And now I'm always confused. So here are my templates up at the top. So I search templates. I'm just going to pull out this mind map one and insert it. And then you can customize it, add instructions. And if you want everybody to be doing the exact same thing, you can do 3 dots and then duplicate. So then it'll duplicate each of those boards. So instead of having each group have a blank board, they'll each go into a board with a template already created. So just some ideas and thoughts as you're thinking about group work and jigsaws and different things like that. Okay, so without further ado, and I wanted to have time for create, and of course, I always talk too much. So this last section has explore the toolkit. The link on the top, if you click on this link, it will bring you into our science toolkit, which has even more templates specific to STEM. So you can use the Zoom icon in the bottom right-hand corner since it's has so many different templates, or if you're on a trackpad, just pinch in and out, and that will zoom in and out. You'll notice that there are little links above each of these different images. So for example, if I wanted to, like one we haven't done yet, I wanted to do a sequence flow chart. When you click on this link, it's creating a force copy for you. So you can start customizing and creating it, doing whatever you want. And then again, if you're using Classroom or Schoology, that classroom icon will be in the upper right-hand corner for you to push out that template for your students. A lot of times, I also have students use the blue share button. And while they're working, before they submit, I usually have them generate and share with me this share link so that during the process, if that's a comment under their assignment, I can click on the link, I can preview it. Obviously, if it's a quick, short assignment, you don't need to do that. But if it's a longer assignment that's going to take a while for the students to complete, I love having this link so I can quickly go in throughout the process, provide feedback to their live document as they're working. So that's just a tip for getting into their documents while they're working. Okay, so you can look through the science toolkit, get an idea of all of these different things. And then the last slide, this is just creating force copy links, but you guys have Google Classroom, so you shouldn't need this. You can just use Google Classroom. But if you're interested in creating force copy links, this will show you how you can do that as well. But this last one shows you 3 different resources. We have videos, additional toolkits, so science, social studies, ELA. This will have all of our different toolkits. And then finally, we have an asynchronous training menu. These are quick 15-minute PDs that take you through different topics. So this is how you can use Lucid for ELA, science, math, social studies, and it's all asynchronous. So you can hop on, do it whenever you would like. So those are kind of just 3 resources to help you as you continue on.